This is a response to qtutoringhelps in his latest video to the Republic of Sandals, in which he discusses why property violations are coercion. And I want to start out by saying I completely agree with his point in that video. And this response is more to just a specific aspect of his video, where he discusses Lockean property norms and how he attributes the appropriation of property to an individual joining their labor to a physical entity taken out of the state of nature. And why I don't think that mixing one's labor with property is a necessary nor a sufficient justification for a property claim. And the one of the typical examples that's given by a lot of people to explain this labor theory of property is like, take a sculptor who sculpts a statue out of a block of marble which he's procured from the state of nature. Nobody owned the marble beforehand. He has an artistic vision, the skill, chisels out a statue, and because he has joined his vision and his labor with this stone, he has added something to it and thus acquired the right to its exclusive use or ownership. And in this instance, labor was joining one's labor to the ownership of the stone, I think, was unnecessary to whether or not they owned the resulting statue or the stone itself, simply due to the fact that they owned the stone and were able to control the stone before the statue was created. They were already in ownership of the block of marble. So in this case, joining labor is not necessary to establish the property claim. They owned the statue because they already owned the marble. Now, another example is if I am a gifted sculptor and I go to your house where you have a block of marble which you have procured from a state of nature. Let's say it's just in your backyard, you've never touched it, you've never joined your labor to it. Nobody has ever joined their labor to it. It's simply recognized as belonging to you. It's in your backyard. I go into your backyard and I join my labor to it, carve a statue out of it, and most people, I think, would say that the resulting statue, even though I have joined my labor to it, it was simply essentially in the state of nature. No one had ever touched it before. I've joined my labor to it, but it is probably not going to be recognized as mine. That is an act of what we would call vandalism. Someone else owned the stone beforehand, and I essentially defaced it, or enfaced it, gave it a face maybe, through my statue, my sculpting work. In this case, labor is not the mixing of labor is not sufficient to establish a claim of ownership. Someone else already owned the stone, even though they may never have even physically touched it or joined their labor to it. So labor is not sufficient nor necessary to establish the legitimacy of a private property claim. I think it is an excellent way of demonstrating that one has laid claim to property. Putting a border around something, around land, putting a fence up is a good way to show others that you have procured it from the state of nature, but it does not actually give the claim legitimacy. Legitimacy is something that is intersubjectively determined by all other people. And I think that this labor metaphor, essentially, of mixing one's labor with property, or with physical entities, and creating something new, actually leads to a lot of problems, including that of intellectual property. My good friend The Sauce, who's not the same user because I'm not him, I think debated intellectual property with Qtron and Danny Dan Danikins about a year ago. Not very effectively, but this labor metaphor, I believe, is responsible for a lot of the confusion over intellectual property, and I would be open to discussing issues of property rights and intellectual property in the future with Q Tutoring Helps if he is willing. And I would love to hear back from him if he has anything to say on this matter. Again, I'm not trying to attack objectivism or start flame wars or anything of this kind. I just want to have a discussion. So yeah, that is my take on the labor theory of property. Oh yeah, and I'm hard at work on the campaign trail. Expect my first major announcements and political attack ads will be coming soon.